You think you know ketchup, right? That bright red, tangy sauce you slap on pretty much everything? Well, what if I told you the ketchup in your fridge is basically an imposter? That the original was actually a brown, savory, and kind of fishy sauce from Asia? Yeah, let's get into the secret, globe-trotting history of one of the world's most famous condiments.
Okay, right off the bat, let's just get to it. Look at this. On the left, we've got the ingredients for a popular ketchup back in 18th century England. You're seeing mushrooms, walnuts, anchovies. Notice anything missing? That's right, not a single tomato in sight. The original English ketchup was this dark, savory sauce, way closer to something like a Worcestershire sauce than the sweet, red stuff we know today.
So that's the big question, isn't it? If that was ketchup, how on earth did we get from a funky, fishy brown sauce to the thick, sweet, and very, very red condiment that's a staple in something like 90% of American homes? Well, to find the answer, we have to go back. Way further back than you'd probably think.
To solve this mystery, we've got to travel back in time and meet ketchup's ancient, very fishy ancestor. This is where the whole story really kicks off. So get this, as far back as 300 BCE, fishermen in southern China had this classic problem. They'd catch way too many small fish to eat all at once. Their solution was kind of simple, but totally brilliant. They'd salt and ferment their catch, which created this potent, savory liquid that they could use as a seasoning for months. Now, what's really wild is that the Chinese weren't the only ones who figured this out. The ancient Greeks, and especially the Romans, totally perfected it. They called their version garum, and they were, and I mean this, obsessed with it. It was the backbone of their food, it traveled with every Roman soldier, and they had dozens of factories all over the Mediterranean just pumping out thousands of gallons of the stuff.
So why was everyone going so crazy for fermented fish juice? The answer is one little word, umami. It's that rich, savory, super satisfying fifth taste you get from things like Parmesan cheese or soy sauce. It comes from a chemical called glutamate, and that right there is the key to this entire story. So remember that word, glutamate. But then, when the Roman Empire collapsed, so did its massive condiment empire. And just like that, poof, garum and the whole fish sauce tradition pretty much vanished from Europe for a solid 1,000 years. It just became this forgotten flavor of the ancient world. So for a millennium, that amazing savory flavor was just gone from Europe. But you can't keep a good thing down forever. Let's fast forward to the 1600s, when European traders are about to accidentally kick off a whole new era of fish sauce mania, this time under a brand new name. While they were trading out in Southeast Asia, Dutch and English sailors found a local sauce they just fell in love with. It went by a few names, one of which was ketchup. They brought barrels of it back to England, and the name got a little anglicized, mangled in translation, and it morphed into the word we all know today, ketchup. Ketchup was a huge hit. But then, around the mid-1700s, the traders got kicked out of their Asian hubs, and the supply was cut off. The British public, though, was not having it. They wanted their ketchup. So chefs had to get creative. They started trying to copy that savory flavor using local stuff, which led to a whole bunch of knockoff ketchups made from things like oysters, mushrooms, and walnuts. And this is where the word ketchup just became a sort of catch-all term for any dark, savory sauce. This whole ketchup hunt actually gave us some of Britain's most famous condiments. That's right, Worcestershire sauce, A1 sauce, they are all part of the same extended, funky, fishy family tree. Okay, so let's do a quick recap of this wild journey. It all starts with fish sauce in China way back in 300 BCE. The Romans perfect it as garum. Then it gets rediscovered in the 1600s as ketchup before being totally re-engineered in England. But believe it or not, the biggest change of all was still to come, and it was going to happen across the Atlantic. A fruit from the New World, one that some people actually thought was poisonous, was about to step onto the scene and change everything. This, my friends, is where ketchup finally starts to turn red. So, in 1812, a doctor in Philadelphia named James Mees publishes the very first recipe for a tomato-based ketchup. But let's be clear, this was not the stuff we know today. His version was thin, it was watery, and it had a pretty hefty dose of brandy in it. So, why tomatoes? What made them the perfect new base for this sauce? This is the aha moment.
Remember glutamate, the chemical that gives fish sauce that savory umami kick? Well, it turns out tomatoes are absolutely loaded with it. They gave you that same deep, satisfying flavor, which made them the perfect substitute for the fish and mushrooms of the old world ketchups.
Mies might have introduced the tomato, but it was another American innovator who was going to take that idea and perfect it, turning it from a watery, boozy sauce into the thick, iconic condiment we all recognize today. By the late 1800s, bottled foods were all the rage, and so was tomato ketchup. Most of the recipes by then had added sugar and salt, but to keep them from going bad on the shelf, they also relied on a pretty questionable chemical preservative called sodium benzoate. And then, a guy named Henry J. Heinz comes along. He wanted to make a purer, more natural product, and his innovation was basically a three-step plan. First, he ditched the weird chemical preservatives. Second, to make up for any lost flavor, he used much riper, redder tomatoes. And third, and this was the masterstroke, he added a ton of vinegar, which is a natural preservative that also gives the sauce that signature tang. The result of all these changes was this thick, rich, goopy sauce that was an absolute smash hit. It tasted better, it was safer, and it just flew off the shelves. Heinz's recipe didn't just do well, it completely redefined what ketchup was, and it set a whole new standard for the entire world. And that standard is still with us. I mean, today, Heinz's version of ketchup is so dominant that an incredible 90% of households in America have a bottle in their kitchen. It has become a true global ambassador for American food. So the next time you squeeze that red bottle onto your fries, just remember its absolutely wild journey. From an ancient Chinese fish sauce, to a Roman obsession, to a British knockoff, and finally to an American icon. Turns out, they are all part of the very same fishy family tree. The history of our food is just full of these amazing, surprising stories. It really makes you wonder, what other secrets are hiding in your pantry? Let us know in the comments. What everyday food should we dig into next?